brought me along yesterday to The Clock at
I-
MoMA.
yes.
Christian Marclay's The Clock.
Yeah, you had to eat your vegetables. You saw the Juggalo mosh pit orgy, and I was like, no, let's go to the Museum of Modern Art.
And can you just describe the piece to our listeners?
The Clock is
If I saw your face from like, who the fuck doesn't know what The Clock is?
Okay, The Clock is a 24-hour video piece that is made up of 10 to 30 second clips of movies and TV throughout all the last 100 years of history, and it uses clips where the time in reality is the same time as someone looking at a clock within the movie or saying the time in the movie.
Yeah.
So like, whatever, Nicolas Cage looks up at Bell Tower and it's 3:20 in the movie clip in National Treasure. In real life, it's also 3:20, and then it just kind of like cuts between them to create this montage, and it kind of, I guess, uses a soundtrack to almost seamlessly cut between all these pieces. And we stayed for like an hour, but
it was like a movie theater inside the MoMA, and the seats were like these white leather couches.
Yeah, a lot of old people falling asleep.
That's immediately what I clocked. It's like, okay, there's nowhere to sit, but also no one's getting up because everyone in this room. Well, granted, we went at what, like 3 p.m. on a
that's
Wednesday?
prime nap. That's prime nap time for the MoMA the MoMA membership audience.
There were so many geriatric people taking a nap.
No, they just came right from the deli. They had their soup and they're like, what time is it? What? The Clock?
What kind of accent is that, Dan?
You know what? Well, we'll get called out in the comments.
Neutral
for the
American
racist.
English.
Yeah.
You're being ageist, actually.
I am being ageist.
Yeah, you're being ageist for doing that.
So what did you think of The Clock? You had never seen it before, right?
I have never seen The Clock. Okay, listeners. So as Dan described, very cool experience because you're watching snippets from cinema where it's like being reflected back at you, like the current time that you are embodied in real life. And at first it felt a bit like scrolling on your phone.
Yeah.
Because you're only getting 10 to 20 second hits. And
which was made in 2012, so it was kind of before that. But yeah.
So fuck, I hate that my brain immediately went there, but that's the reality.
No,
it's like you end up, you feel compelled to stay because you're gonna get a new dopamine hit with each new clip.
Yeah.
And sometimes, in my case, like you'll recognize a few of the movies here and there. I'm like, oh, Nicolas Cage. Oh, he's in The Rock. I've seen that. Whereas like for someone like you, who's a voracious cinephile, you're like, it's like Jeopardy for you.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, that's what,
so
1950s. I know that. I know what
classic. I'm like a fucking whatever, someone in the Criterion closet. You're like, oh, essential movie, essential.
Dude, have you thought about what you would pick in the Criterion closet?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I would.
But you would be like The Godfather, essential.
Either I would just make up shit, like pick movies that I know that people would expect of me to like, or I can't believe that there just needs to be a celebrity up there who's just like, bro, I'm not gonna pretend. Okay?
Yeah. I like Gladiator. Do you guys have Gladiator?
Look, I'm one of those unique actors who kind of doesn't watch a lot of movies.
Yeah.
So anyways, there was that. Secondly, I love how I'm moving my hand like Donald Trump right now. Yeah. Secondly, it's just from like a technical standpoint, I was like so impressed by it because it must have been so labor intensive. Like, how do you document?
Yeah, dude, some unpaid
what movies
intern
have a clock or some reference to time.
Honestly,
in it.
Pretty good gig. You're like, yeah. I don't know. Like,
you think
I'll pay you in a Metro.
Hate that.
I'll pay you in a Metro card. You just have to watch movies and log the time.
It sounds awful. Like
because there are thousands and thousands of movies.
Dude, in theory, it sounds like it would be fun. it reminds me of like those video game testers.
Yeah.
Like if you like video games, you would think that you would want to do that. Like much in the case of you like movies, you'd be doing that. But as a video game tester, like you're just playing the same levels over and over and over again,
Trying to like
break it.
Yeah.
That would drive me insane.
And also, like, I wonder if at some point, like, let's go 2 times speed just to find. But you're saying like it is like TikTok in that you're like always searching for the next dopamine hit.
Yeah.
But you're never satisfied because there's usually when someone's looking at the time in a movie, there's kind of like tension. Someone's waiting for something, or someone's stressed out. The music is foreboding. Someone's waiting.
You're perpetually edging.
It's like edging, and you never come because it's always like every scene's like building tension at every moment, and it's just like endlessly building tension just the way our brains work. You're like constantly trying to make connections, especially the way it's edited. Someone looks up in one movie and then it cuts to a clock, but the clock is in another movie,
right?
As if they were looking at it. So your brain's like, wait, how can I connect this person and their story,
right?
How Gregory Peck in the 1950s to whatever.
Such a hot guy, by the way.
Super hot. Jack Nicholson.
Also, Jack Nicholson, hot guy. Didn't know that.
He had some riz in the day.
I've only known him as the courtside Lakers and shining Jack Nicholson.
No, Jack Nicholson in The Last Detail. He's beautiful.
The only other movie I know with him is Something's Gotta Give.
What about Anger Management?
Actually,
you've seen that movie.
I've seen it.
But what I like about it is that you're so aware of how long you're watching it, like because you can literally see the time, but there's still a disconnect between you and the reality you live at the time you're in and the time in the movies. And I brought a passage.
Ooh, Dan.
Yeah,
Dan brought a book.
I brought a book in Ben Lerner, great author,
Ben Lerner,
friend of the pod, let's say.
Ben Lerner is for the Soft Boy 3.0.
Yeah,
the ones who don't want to tell people that Jonathan Franzen is their favorite author.
He's the male Sally Rooney.
I like Ben Lerner.
Yeah. So in his book 1004, which is the second book, he actually went to the clock.
Oh,
piece the clock. It's kind of he does the autofiction thing.
Okay.
So he's playing. It's loosely based on himself. And there's this passage which I liked. So I'd heard the clock described as the ultimate collapse of fictional time into real time, a work designed to obliterate the distance between art and life, fantasy and reality. But part of why I looked at my phone, that was to look at the time on his phone, was because that distance hadn't been collapsed for me at all. While the duration of a real minute in the clock's minute were mathematically indistinguishable, they were nevertheless minutes from different worlds. I watched time in the clock, but wasn't in it, or I was expecting time as such, not just having experiences through it as a medium. And as I made and unmade a variety of overlapping narratives out of its found footage, I felt acutely how many different days could be built out of a day, felt more possibility than determinism, the utopian glimmer of fiction. When I looked at my watch to see a unit of measure identical to the one displayed on screen, I was indicating that a distance remained between art and the mundane. Everything will be as it is now, the room, the baby, the clothes, the minutes, just a little different.
Wow. I'm like Ben Lerner. That is exactly how I felt.
Me?
Ben
Lerner?
No, and I think I told you this as soon as we walked out. I was like, it felt like it felt like a cheat where I was able to experience like multiple realities and alternate universes of myself. And it just so happened that I'm in a museum watching a movie, which is most likely the most boring reality of all of these alternate versions of myself.
Yeah.
And just seeing like, oh wow, at 3 p.m. like perhaps there is a secret agent who is like having a sneaky like quick fuck in the late afternoon.
Yeah.
Like
it's like a weird glimpse into like the infinite your lives that are occurring right at the exact moment as you are. And you're kind of seeing like it fractured in a way that like at 3 o'clock I'm doing this and whatever, a woman's at the grocery store and a husband is being murdered and a kid is being picked up from school. Like all these realities are occurring at once.
I loved it. I loved it so much for that reason, and it bears repeat viewing because I'm so.
Yeah, I kind of want to go back.
Well, I'm so curious, like how you said it runs on 24 hours. So how does one see like what's being portrayed in film at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m? You know,
I mean, when I first
just
saw
people
it, the gallery
sleeping.
was open 24. Well, I think so. I think what's also interesting is that like the rhythms of life,
Yeah.
you kind of realize. So I think in the middle of the night, when I saw it a while ago, I think I got there at like 1 a.m, and so it's a lot of like really delirious, people
At a gallery.
Yeah, at the gallery, people, and you were kind of like half asleep, but also the people on screen are like
Yeah.
super out of it, or they're high strung, or they're waiting, or they're out late, and
Sure.
it's like whatever movies like Eyes Wide Shut or After Hours that have this eerie vibe. It's horror movies, and that's also what's interesting is that that we see kind of how time is reflected in cinema, and we don't subconsciously, like at noon there are all these standoffs, these high noon standoffs between cowboys. At whatever 3, I feel like kids were being picked up from school and all that stuff.
What is your favorite hour in the day?
Wow.
Yeah.
My favorite hour, like when I think I'm at peak.
Or maybe what's your favorite, or like what energetically, what do you think
question.
you embody?
I think like 11. I think I'm pretty good at 11 a.m.
And you like that hour, 11 a.m.?
Yeah.
What about 11 a.m.?
I just feel like I'm fucking firing. I had my coffee.
Because you just woke up 30 minutes before?
Yeah, we're 30 minutes before. I had my coffee, took my morning shit,
Your peak.
checked my email. I'm ready to go. I can lock in. I'm looking forward to lunch. Lunch is soon, but I'm not, I'm not too full.
Okay.
What about you?
I think I'm like a 5 p.m. kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it about 5 p.m.? That does it for you. This is going to be the podcast from now. We just ask guests, what's your favorite
hour of the day? I'm a
stop people on the street.
I think I'm like a 5 p.m. kind of guy. You're winding up work. You feel productive. I guess
you work?
I work.
You have a 9 to 5?
Oh, well, you're one to talk. I was going to say, you can tell someone's unemployed when you ask them like, oh, what did you do today? And they always, the inclusion of like, I woke up and I ate breakfast. Like, for most people who work, that's not even worth mentioning.
Yeah.
What did I do? Yes, I woke up. I ate breakfast.
That's a big part of it. Yeah.
No, but then you're on the cusp of night, and there's so much potential brimming there. It's a very exciting time. I love fun.
And you never feel like, oh, I wasted the night.
No. I'm horny for completing tasks and feeling productive.
Yeah.
And that's 5 p.m. is peak that.
I think Nabokov said that 3 p.m. is way too late or way too early to do something. That's like the worst time.
Also the 3 p.m. that's I don't know, never mind. The other interesting about this piece is that this could be so easily done with AI technology now.
You mean just like sorting through
footage? Like that is what makes it such a marvel, is that someone had to physically like organize the footage. But I'm sure there's machine learning models now where you could just be like, okay, let me feed you all these movies just fine where there's any mention of like 3 p.m., 3:15, and it'll just sort it out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have replaced whatever intern had to do that. Although I think it is very well edited and slickly, and sometimes he cuts back and forth. Like you'll see someone and then you'll see them in like 5 minutes. You kind of like, oh, what happened to them in the last 5 minutes? It's really kind of cool when you see like young Bruce Willis and you see old Bruce Willis,
right? And
there's like I don't know. I guess it's like a memento mori where there's like an awareness of like life and death and the passage of time. So even within 10 minutes,
right,
there's like a lifetime that just passed by, and Bruce Willis is 40 years older, and you're like, fuck.
And I will say that I feel like movie stars of the past, they had so much more charisma.
Oh yeah, that's also like you watching this, you're like, oh, that's, you like know who's a movie star.
Yeah, it's so abundantly clear.
Yeah,
and they were just hotter, they were sexier, and they were more charismatic in the old days.
It's just the way they eat, and
maybe because there's like they just look I mean, even young Bruce Willis, for instance, you know,
They just carry the screen, and you
and
really
they
know
look
it
normal.
because you see it in 15 they have 15 seconds,
Mm.
right? And you're like, oh, I'm hooked looking at like this Jack Nicholson movie. I don't even know what this movie is, but like
Yeah.
just looking at his face, it's like a distinct, bizarre face. I'm looking at it for 15 seconds, and like, I want to know more. I want to keep looking at it, and I'm
Right.
gone. It's like, oh, okay, now I'm looking at whatever Barbara Streisand, who has like a striking like nose, and,
Striking look.
yeah.
I
And
know.
now we just get just
Fucking-
perfect, chiseled, smooth-brained Netflix shows.
But if you're casting director, casting for that, I'd love to act in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your look. Well, I was talking to you about this. Do you think it was too entertaining? The clock?
I was entertained, but I don't think that like. Why do you think it detracts from its
There's just like it's a bit
for
of
its
a
ability to
cheat
be called? You think
in
it's a
some
cheat?
ways that he's using like movies and clips and like so much stimuli to keep you captured. And I wonder if there's like something that turns it a little bit into like a roller coaster. You know?
Because the end result is like, I mean, for you especially, you're probably like fucking getting wet watching all these like classic films being played. I get what you're saying because yeah, I've never been entertained by a video
Yeah,
art piece
can
ever
art-
in my life.
Can art generally be entertaining, or does it cease to become like gallery art and become something else, like a movie
I mean,
or a song or
it is a bit of a cheat. Maybe that's why it is so popular
yeah.
and it's endured because it's threaded the needle
Yeah, it gets away with it.
because the process is so sound.
Yeah, and it's a great like, I mean, you just tell someone the idea and you see it and you're like, oh, this is genius. Like, this is such an inspired
I know.
contraption.
I wish I thought of it.
But part of, I don't know, like why is a Beatles song not in a gallery, but like whatever, a
Fucking-
Stephen Reich or Philip Glass sound installation would be, you know? And the difference is like one is
boring.
One is boring.
One is fun.
yeah, and one like you get lost in it, and the other reminds you of its presence and your relation to it, and you're like there's always a gap between you and the thing.
I'm convinced. Yeah, I'm convinced. If it's boring, then it's art.
Yeah, that's it. That's the rule.
That's the rule.
He's
So
like,
if
what
you're-
is art? We answered the question, the age-old question. Is it art? If it's boring, then yeah, you
Yeah.
might have gotten some art.
So yeah, if we ever decide to open a gallery, that'll be our criteria
Yeah.
of like, do I want to see more of this? Like, you're rejected.
Yeah.
Okay, that was Middlebrow.